So on, I don't know what day it was, you got started with the Odyssey. There was a video that played that talked to you about the very beginning. So this is a timeline of the events that happened in the Odyssey, and the timeline goes in chronological order. However, in the book, it is not presented to us in chronological order. So if we start here, this is where Odysseus started with the Trojan War. He left Troy with 12 ships, and he was here for 10 years, and then this whole thing took him 10 years to get home. This map up here shows you that he just went all over the place. So he started somewhere. I don't see it on here. Anyway, and then he went all over the place. And this is home right here. Oh, right here. See, so it's not really that far, just coming down, and he would have been there. But he angered the gods and made some stupid choices, and then he was all over. So the story doesn't start here. The story that we're reading starts here. So we learned about Calypso, that Odysseus spent 7 of the 10 years with Calypso, and he was not always a captive. He was a willing captive most of the time. She's a beautiful goddess, and so it was said that he would spend his days crying on the shore and his nights in her bed. And then after that, he goes to King Alcinous in Scyria, and this is where he begins to tell King Alcinous' story. So this is how we hear about all of the rest of this from right here. And then it will come back to this at the end, and then Odysseus will return home. Okay? So you have a study guide that you picked up. I don't know what day it was. Everyone have that study guide? Textbooks open? 372. Okay, so on your study guide, which question was the last question that you answered? On your study guide, which question was the last question that you answered? 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we're getting ready for 11. Okay. So, before we start with you can staple the first study guide that we got that starts like this. You can staple that one to the second one if you want. And then the second one, the front looks like this. Okay? Okay, so before we start, we're going to talk about this idea of the rite of hospitality. So in this day and age, if a stranger came to your door, people would invite them in, give them the best seat in the house, and just shower them with gifts and food and whatever. And after they had been here for a while, then they would say, by the way, who are you and why are you here? Because they thought that the gods and goddesses would come and visit them, and they didn't want to offend them. And that would offend the gods and goddesses if they opened the door and like, why are you here? What do you want? So that's called the rite of hospitality. Now, think about our day and age. Someone comes to my door, I don't even let them in. Like, I go outside and talk to them. The dogs are always barking, so they're, I don't ever welcome them in. And I always know what they want before they come in. So it's a total different way of thinking about strangers in your house. That's what King Alcinous did. He welcomed Odysseus in, and then finally he said to Odysseus, you got to tell me who you are, and you got to tell me what you want. And so that's what Odysseus is retelling the story then for the rest of the Odyssey. So that's number 11. Number 11 says, what is the rite of hospitality? It is when you welcome in a stranger before asking them their name. Welcome in a stranger before asking their name. Okay, so did you read anything here with book 9? No, okay. All right, so in the textbook, what is italicized is the textbook company summarizing, and then down below is what actually came from the Odyssey. So they only include pieces of the Odyssey. They only include the parts that they think are the most interesting. All right, for 7 of the 10 years Odysseus has spent wandering the Mediterranean Sea, he's been held captive by the goddess Calypso on her island. In Book 5, Zeus sends Hermes to tell Calypso to release Odysseus. She helps him build a raft on which he can sail to his destination. He must sail for 20 days before landing on the island of Scheria, where he will be helped in his efforts to return home. In Books 6 through 8, he is welcomed by King Alcinous, who gives a banquet in his honor. That night, the king begs Odysseus to tell who he is and what has happened to him. In Books 9 through 12, Odysseus relates to the king his adventures. All right, so 12. Where is Odysseus? It tells us right here when I just read it. He was there first, but at the end. He's in Scheria, Scheria. Scheria with King Alcinous, Alcinous. Okay, so this is how he starts his tale. Now, other people had returned home from Troy, and Odysseus and his men had not returned home. So if Odysseus introduces himself and is like, hey, I'm Odysseus, they're going to know who he is. And they're going to wonder, where have you been? What has taken you so long? What shall I say first? What shall I keep till the end? The gods have tried me in 1,000 ways, but first my name. Let it be known to you. And if I pull away from pitiless death, friendship will bind us. Though my land lies far, I am Laertes' son. Okay? Odysseus. Laertes, this is his father's name. So it would be like I would say, I am John's daughter. Like that's my dad's first name, okay? Men hold me formidable for guile in peace and war. This fame has gone abroad the sky's rim. My home is on the sea marked of Ithaca, under Mount Neon's wind-blown robe of leaves. So where is Odysseus from? Ithaca. Ithaca. So now it's just describing Ithaca. Being most lofty in the coastal sea and northwest, the rest lie east and south, a rocky isle, but good for a boy's training. I shall not see on earth a place more dear. Though I have been detained long by Calypso, loveliest among the goddesses, who held me in her smooth cave to her heart's delight, as Circe of Aea, the enchantress, desired me and detained me in her hall. Okay, so where was he before he was with King Alcinous? He was with Calypso. Now, Penelope, Odysseus' wife, has been at home this whole time, and she's been fighting off suitors. And Odysseus is taken 7 of the 10 years to spend it in a relationship with an immortal, beautiful goddess. And this is, he is not faithful to his wife in any way, shape, or form. But in my heart, I did not give consent. So this is the biggest excuse. Yes, I was unfaithful to my wife, but it didn't mean anything. In my heart, I did not give consent. That is his excuse. That's number 15. It didn't mean anything. Okay. Where shall a man find sweetness to surpass his home and his parents? In far lands he shall not, though he finds a house of gold. What of my sailings then from Troy? What of those years of rough adventure weathered under Zeus? So Odysseus then says, line 25 there, that he, even though he's been gone, where's your study guide? For 10 years, he wants to go home. So he highly values his home and his wife. And the reason why he wants to go home is he said he wants to grow old with his wife. He wants to be at home. You know, it's like when you travel for a long time and you enjoy your travels, but at some point you're like, I just want to sleep in my own bed, right? Okay. Where does Odysseus stop first on his way home? All right, so then let's look here on 373. Odysseus explains that soon after leaving Troy, he and his crew near Ismaros, the city of Cicones. The Cicones are allies of the Trojan and therefore enemies of Odysseus. Odysseus and his crew raid the Cicones, robbing and killing them until the Ciconian army kills 72 of Odysseus's men and drives the rest out to sea. Delayed by a storm of 2 days, Odysseus and his remaining companions then continue on their journey. Okay, so number 17, they stop at the Cicones, Cicones. So Odysseus and his men just finished the Trojan War, and they were successful. They won, and they won in a very clever way. So his men are really like kind of cocky about it. And so they stop at the Cicones and they're like, you know, we're invincible. So they go inland and they raid the city. They steal things, they kill things, and they think that they're going to get away with it all. But the Cicones, one Cicone rides into town and comes back with a huge army. And the Ciconian army kills 72 of Odysseus's men. So they kind of slaughtered them. And then Odysseus and his men were punished because they were at sea for 2 days in the storm. Okay, so that's what over at the side where it says flashback, Cicones. So I'm going to write there Odysseus, and sometimes I abbreviate by just putting ODY. Odysseus and men raid the city. Cicones kill 72 men. So when we look over here, now we are in this flashback. We're all the way back here. So they just left Troy, and now they stopped at the Cicones right here. Near Ismaros, 72 die. Okay, so then they move on right there. Okay, so let's hear about the lotus eaters. I might have made it home safely that time, but I came round Malea. The current took me out to sea, and from the north a fresh gale drove me on past Cythera. 9 days I drifted on the teeming sea before the dangerous high winds. Upon the 10th we came to the coastline of the lotus eaters, who lived upon that flower. Okay, so how long had they been at sea? 10 days. What did the lotus eaters eat? Lotus flower. Lotus eaters, what do they eat? Lotus flower. Okay. We landed there to take on water. All the ship's companies mustered alongside for a midday meal. So why did they stop?
Midday meal.
The sentence before that. To take on water, to get water. Then I sent out 2 picked men and a runner to learn what race of men the land sustained. They fell in soon enough with lotus eaters. Okay, so who went to check out the land? 2 men and a runner, so 3 people. Okay? They fell soon enough with lotus eaters who showed no will to do us harm, only offered the sweet lotus to our friends. But those who ate the honeyed plant, the lotus, never cared to report nor return. They longed to stay forever browsing on the native bloom, forgetful of their homeland. I drove them all 3 wailing to the ships and tied them down under the rowing benches and called the rest. All hands aboard, come, clear the bench, and no one taste the lotus or you lose your hope for home. So what's wrong with eating the lotus?
It makes you forget.
Makes you forget, yeah. Okay, makes you forget home. How does Odysseus get the men on the ship? He carries them, and then he ties them to the boat bench. Filling in their places by the rowlocks, my oarsmen dipped their long oars into the surf, and we moved out again on our seafaring. All right, so Cyclops is next. All right, Cyclops is one of the longest stories. It's pretty good. All right, in the next land we found were Cyclops, giant louts, without laws to bless them, in ignorance, leaving the fruitage of the earth in misery to the immortal gods. They neither plow nor sow by hand, nor till the ground, though grain, wild wheat, and barley grow untended, and wine grapes in clusters ripen the heavens' rain. Okay, so what's happening in the Cyclops land? Right here, it says, in ignorance, leaving the fruitage of the earth in mystery, nor sow by hand, nor till the ground. So what are they not doing? Taking care of it, okay. There's wheat and barley that grow there wild, but they don't harvest it, okay. So Cyclops don't harvest the wheat and barley. And then it says there are wine grapes there also that they don't harvest as well. Cyclops have no muster and no meeting, no consultation or tribal ways, but each one dwells in his mountain cave, dealing out rough justice to wife and child, indifferent to what others do. Now, so this means that the Cyclops live by themselves. One Cyclops family's here, one's here. They don't have a common set of rules. They don't come together. They just deal with their own in their own time. Across the bay from the land of the Cyclops, in a lush, deserted island, Odysseus and his crew land on the island in a dense fog and spend days feasting on wine and wild goats and observing the mainland where the Cyclops live. On the 3rd day, Odysseus and his company of men set out to learn if the Cyclops are friend or foe. Okay, where do they set up camp?
On the other side of,
On an island that is across the bay. Okay, so number 26, it just simply says liquor. So in a previous story, Odysseus had gone to, I can't remember what the guy's name is, and he gave him some wine, some liquor. And Odysseus kept this liquor in, like a canteen or something like that. And the liquor was so strong that it needed to be diluted in order for normal people to drink it. So Odysseus just had this. And so when they went on inland, he took some of this with him, okay? The other thing that's important to know is that there is no reason for Odysseus and his men to go visit the Cyclops. They're only doing it because he is curious. Odysseus is curious about the Cyclops. All right? When the young dawn with fingertips of rose came in the east, I called my men together and made a speech for them. Old shipmates, the rest of you stand by. I'll make the crossing in my own ship with my own company and find out what mainland natives are, for they may be wild savages and lawless, or hospitable and God-fearing men. At this point, I went aboard, and gave my word to cast off by stern. My oarsmen followed, filling in the benches by the rowlocks, and dipped their oars in the gray sea. So, number 27, who went to explore? Odysseus and his company, his boat. As we rounded on and neared to the mainland, at one end of the bay, we saw a cavern yawning above the water, screened with laurel, and many rams and goats about the place. Inside, a sheepfold made from slabs of stone, earth fast between the trunks of pine and rugged towering oak trees. Okay, so the Cyclops, they're big people, much bigger than Odysseus and his men. So what they see when they pull up are trees around, and then there are these gigantic stones that are put between these trees to make a fence, and then inside the fence is a goat or sheep, okay? So that tells you something about how big they are, how strong they are. If in making a fence, they just pick up giant boulders and put them in between trees. That's typically not how we make fences, okay? A prodigious man slept in the cave alone and took his flocks to graze afield. Remote from his companions, knowing none but savage ways, a brute so huge he seemed no man at all, but those who eat good wheaten bread, but seemed rather a shaggy mountain reared in solitude. Okay, 28. How is the Cyclops described? Huge. He is described as a mountain. He seemed less like a man and more like a shaggy mountain. Okay, he stays by himself in solitude. And he is a savage. Not a savage like you're thinking in slang, which is like cool or I don't know, but a savage like doesn't follow any rules and just does whatever he wants and doesn't. That's savage? Okay. Okay. We beached there, and I told my crew to stand by and keep watch over the ship. As for myself, I took my 12 best fighters and went ahead. I had a goatskin full of that sweet liquor that Euthydemus' son, Marion, had given me. Okay. Okay, so he got this liquor from Marion. Okay, so let's do this one and then we'll be done. So he got the liquor, number 26, from Marion. Marin, whatever. Okay. He kept Apollo's holy grove at Ismaros. For kindness we showed him there, and showed his wife and child. He gave me 7 shilling gold talons perfectly formed, a solid silver wine bowl, and then the liquor. 12 two-handled jars brandy, pure and fiery. Not a slave in Marion's household knew the drink. I don't know why you're putting away. We still have time. So no one knew about the drink. So that's just the second one. No one knew about this liquor. So it is secret. All right. And they would put 1 cupful ruby-colored honey smooth in 20 or more of water. So you're supposed to dilute this. 1 cup of the liquor to 20 cups of water. So what does that tell you about the liquor?
It's strong.
It's very, very strong. Right. And it is honey smooth.
How many cups of
1 to 20. So it means that it tastes really good. But still the sweet scent hovered like a fume over the wine bowl. No man turned away a cup. So the last thing, no one would turn it away. So it's very strong. It is kind of secret. And once you drank it, you always wanted more. Okay, so you need to put this in your binder. It's not